We're keeping this train rolling, baby, because it seems like the Montreal Canadiens may have been involved in some under-the-radar trades. Things that may have been waived, or things that may have been rejected. Let's dive in to what the Montreal Canadiens were reported to doing yesterday at the NHL Trade Deadline. But of course, we all know what actually happened. Nothing. The Montreal Canadiens didn't make a single trade yesterday at the trade deadline. This roster, guys, is the roster that we are seeing. Last year, it was Detroit and their captain Dylan Larkin who said, "Oh, I'm really disappointed we didn't add." And then you had Detroit's Patrik Laine saying earlier this season, "Yeah, I hope we add." And then, guess what? Steve Yzerman added. He got Justin Falk. Whoop-de-doo. The Montreal Canadiens, their story, they're not there yet. They don't have players on their team expressing frustration. "Oh, we really want to be competitive. We want to make the playoffs. We feel like we earned the right to be buyers." Nobody's saying that. Heck, you can make the debate that Montreal already made some acquisitions that are worthwhile recently. Philippe Danault was acquired back in December. That's a trade. Is he a trade deadline-worthy tradable asset? I don't know. You can go out there and debate that amongst yourselves. But this is the Habs team that we have. Some of these guys that we maybe expected had a chance to get moved are still here. And guys that are injured are also still here. Hey, Patrik Laine, how you doing? So without further ado, let's get into some of the rejects and the secrets as to what the Montreal Canadiens may have had up their sleeves and what they might have gotten rejected from. Take a look at this. HFTV went out there and posted this tweet. Interesting note from Renaud Lavoie yesterday evening as the Canadiens were blowing a lead against the Ducks. There was a theory on why the Montreal Canadiens took so long to meet the media after the trade deadline. It was that the Canadiens had a trade refused by the NHL. HFTV Sports says, "I'm even more intrigued now as to why it took Kent Hughes an hour to come out if he didn't have any trade in the queue." He's, of course, quote-tweeting a tweet from Renaud Lavoie. This is the original one. "After verification, the Canadiens did not make any trades before the deadline. No trade involving the Canadiens was therefore sent to the NHL for review." And so, with that said, it's like, if Montreal didn't have a trade in the pipeline, they weren't one of those teams that was just waiting for the paperwork to be confirmed before they could tweet it out and confirm everything themselves. If they didn't have a trade coming up on the chopping block, then why did they wait so long to meet with the media? That's very interesting. Here's a tweet from David Pagnotta. As mentioned, the Canadiens had something cooking. The Habs want guys who can fit into their long-term plan. This is responding to Eric Engels, who said on Twitter, "Kent Hughes said the Habs went down to the wire on a deal that didn't get consummated today, but could be done in the summer." We know you guys know who. You're insiders with connections everywhere. I guarantee you have the name or at least a strong suspicion. Yeah, that's kind of a cynical way to look at it, and the NHL insiders going out there and providing us with info, but still. Take a look at Marco D'Amico. Kent Hughes confirms the Canadiens were in on a couple of trade lists, but he got feedback that those lists may have been on the outdated information side, and that players could have waived given the current look of the club. So that's really interesting. Apparently some players were not interested in going to Montreal, but that's because those lists that they had that said they didn't want to go to Montreal were from before Montreal actually looked like a desirable place. Interesting. Take a look at Eric Engels. He made this tweet as well. It's a very interesting comment. Kent Hughes would not say what caused such a long delay between the deadline and his arrival in front of the media. Maybe in 10 years from now. Over a beer, he quipped. Sounds like something came close to happening. A reply says, so Kent Hughes put all his eggs into one basket? What happened to options B, C, and D? Seems satisfied to let the rivals in the East get deeper and bigger. Whatever it may be, we may not know until somebody writes about it in a book or something. But I also wanted to turn your attention to this tweet posted by David Pagnotta. This was before the deadline. In fact, 2 hours before the deadline actually came and went. As just mentioned on the Daily Face-Off panel with the boys, I'm told the Montreal Canadiens have circled back with the Flames recently on Nazem Kadri. Talks continue. Some chatter Patrik Laine could be in play here if this gets to the finish line. Haha, I love how he wrote that. Finish line. Patrik Laine is Finnish. Haha, that's exactly what we come to work for. The Calgary Flames ended up trading Nazem Kadri for a whole bunch of stuff. They got some picks. They got Victor Olofsson from the Colorado Avalanche. Olofsson seems to have been the not Finnish. Olofsson is not a Finn. The European winger that Calgary was interested in exchanging Nazem Kadri for. Of course, alongside of a bunch of other stuff, some picks and whatnot. Now Nazem Kadri is a member of the Colorado Avalanche, and he is going to be going over to a team that is absolutely locked up at sea. McKinnon, Nelson, Waugh, Kadri, best center core in the league. Bar none. Nazem Kadri is a 60, 70-point guy when he's at his best. And now he's playing fourth-line center? What is this, Team Canada? Is Nathan McKinnon going to miss the net again on an open cage? Who knows? But I do find it intriguing that this piece of info was brought up shortly before the trade deadline actually came and passed. That Patrik Laine and Nazem Kadri could have been swapped for each other. It really does start to become a more interesting point when you remember that Nazem Kadri was one of those guys whose trade to Colorado was one of the pending ones that we didn't see up until the very, very end of it. Like, I want to say the Nazem Kadri trade was, I think, the last trade that we saw. Is that true? Like, I don't know. There might have been some other extra small prospect for prospect moves that we didn't really have any awareness of. But Nazem Kadri to Colorado was one of those final deals. So is there a chance that Montreal was potentially swimming around trying to get something done until Calgary just said, oh, sorry, we're actually just going to go with this Colorado package because they're sending us what we like, and Nazem Kadri would prefer to go there than to you, Kent Hughes. Sorry. And then Kent Hughes is like, wait a minute, what? And then he has to hang up the phone, and it's already lunchtime, and it's like, oh, darn. Huh. Trade deadline's passed. I don't know. There's a number of ways that you could look at it. There were a number of guys that probably would have been able to come to Montreal if they had just updated their trade lists and they gave more context and said, oh, yeah, wait, actually, the Canadiens are good now. Scratch that. I actually want to play in Montreal. I'd be fine with it. But either way, Kent Hughes does say that Montreal could get these trades done in the summer. So I'm not necessarily thinking that Nazem Kadri is that guy. I mean, he is 35 years old. He is making $7 million a year. I think there is salary retained on the contract as well. So that's a really good piece of business for Colorado. But I'm assuming it's not Nazem Kadri. There may be somebody else. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, though. How do you feel about all these Canadiens updates of what could have been at this year's trade deadline? Nothing is for certain these days, as it seems. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.